the man, he's the myth, he's the legend, he's the scientist with all the answers to all the questions. It's time for another episode of Alex's Science Corner.
Oh, thank you. No, please, thank you. It's much nicer when it's short and quick for the cheering.
There you go. What's going on in the wide, wide world of science, my friend?
So, first story I'm going to talk about is researchers are learning much more about bedbugs, and one thing that they're finding out is how old the bedbugs are. And I'm not talking about individual age. I'm talking about when is it that bedbugs evolved to the point that you can start calling them bedbugs. And now, the first thoughts about bedbugs were that they were about 5 million years, 6 million years old, and that they had kind of developed along with bats. That the first bedbugs had developed with bats and spread out to other species and to humans from bats. But a lot more research has shown that there's actually a lot more varieties of bedbugs than they originally thought. And that their lineage now seems to trace back to about 122 million years that the bedbugs have been around.
I wonder if that's older than cockroaches that have been around.
I don't know about cockroaches right off, but it is definitely during the time of dinosaurs that these bedbugs became what we would recognize as bedbugs. Not the exact same species, obviously, but the first bedbugs that they've started to recognize are about 122 million years old. Now, they would not have been feasting on dinosaurs. They would have been feasting on a lot of other creatures, maybe the avian dinosaurs, but most of them would have been feeding on the other creatures around at the time. The current set of bedbugs that affect humans came from bats. They start to separate out from the bedbugs that affected bats, and they suspect that when humans started to evolve from the other great ape ancestors, part of what our ancestors did is start to live in caves. And so the bedbugs that used to affect bats found another food source in humans. Bedbugs will affect nesting animals. The reason is bedbugs are kind of slow creatures. The victim animal can't be moving real fast or not moving at all so that the bedbug has a chance to attach onto it.
Ugh, those things give me the creeps.
Yeah. Well, there are 3 different species that generally affect humans, and they all seem to be variations from one species that originally affected bats. And so the 3 different species that affect humans were all bat-related originally, and they just found another source of food. They've started to develop out separately from that.
And they can jump from species to species.
Oh, yeah, pretty easily. They tend to, once they've locked onto a species, they'll tend to stay with that species. But if something happens to that species, they are easily able to go to another species.
Highly adaptable.
Yeah. Or actually, they're not adapting a lot because they seem to have to. Yeah. I mean, they are adapting, they are changing, but it's...
There's a lot of available hosts.
Yes.
I tell you, when I go to a hotel now, I strip back the bed and I look. No matter how nice the hotel is, those things freak me out.
I usually end up sleeping in my car. I know it's safe in there.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean...
Everyone's in a hotel. Where's Dwayne?
They can get in your luggage. They can... Oh, man.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
And getting rid of them is
Do they have any
very,
natural
very
predators?
difficult.
What eats them?
No, there are no real natural predators for them. They were being controlled by various pesticides that were being used. The challenge with the pesticides is that the bedbugs that survived the pesticides had immunity, and of course those are the ones that bred, and so those bedbug babies had the immunity, and so now
those super bedbugs.
Well, the bedbugs that are out now have immunity to all those chemicals that we're using to treat them before.
I think when they come in, don't they freeze them? They have some sort of process where they're freezing them.
I haven't heard that specific thing. Again, most of the ones that they had originally were based on DDT and some other types of...
Right, but I'm saying if you have an infestation, like a hotel or something, I think they...
No, I think they just toss everything out.
Yeah. Well, they should.
Yeah.
But I think you still have to do... I mean, You still have to do something.
I thought they burned them, but again, that's just
Okay. That's
I've heard that a lot of the stores that sell the mattresses, when they come and get yours, they use a separate truck. They won't even come with your mattress. They bring a separate truck.
I
And they
won't
don't
be
get.
surprised.
That's a smart idea if they do that.
I remember when we were watching the documentary about World War One, the one that Peter Jackson did. There'd be stories about these guys getting bed bugs out of their clothing, and so they'd have these cooking parties where they'd run matches over their seams, and they'd hear the popping of the bed bugs.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've grossed out the audience a little bit,
Which is why I want to have this second story come afterwards, so that you're not left with a
transition
gross.
here.
Exactly.
Good pacing.
Next story is about the moon has moonquakes. They've known about that since the Apollo era, because one of the things that happened is when the Apollo missions landed on the moon, they left a bunch of different seismometers as part of the science instrumentation. One of the challenges is, on their own, they knew that they had quakes, but they couldn't figure it out. But recently, being able to go back to this old data with new mapping techniques, plus we have the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is taking some really high-resolution photographs of the moon, they were able to triangulate using the old Apollo data to the locations where these quakes were happening. And what they found is they found the fissures or the seams where these moonquakes are happening. And what seems to be happening is the moon is shrinking. In the past couple million years, it's shrunk by about 100 meters in diameter. Now, that's not a lot when you think of a body the size of the moon, but it is enough to start causing moonquakes. And they've reported about 30 of them since the Apollo era. So there are these moonquakes that happen. One of the things about them is they're not random. The moonquakes are happening at specific locations, and they found these locations with the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. Again, the reason why they suspect it's because of shrinking. Here on Earth, we have earthquakes because we have different plates that are flowing on top of our mantle of magma. And when those plates bounce up against each other or push underneath or over each other, the stress of those contacts cause earthquakes. On the moon, there's only one plate. But since it's shrinking, it's collapsing in. And as it collapses in, these stress points are rubbing up against each other and pushing up. And those are causing the earthquakes or the moonquakes. And why they suspect it's from shrinking at these particular unusual formations is that most of them seem to happen when the moon is under most stress at the farthest part of its orbit. When it's at the farthest point of its orbit from the Earth, that's when it has the most
Is that the apogee, they call it?
Apogee, yes. Perigee is when the moon is the closest point to Earth in its orbit. Apogee is the farthest point. And most of these quakes happen when the moon is at its farthest point, at its most stressful, and that's when most of these quakes are happening. All these fault lines are north to south near the equator, and it's just an interesting thing that they found that the moon is shrinking, and it's just the stress of it is causing it to just have all these quakes.
So they're planning on a moon mission in the next 5 years.
2014, they're hoping to go.
2024. You mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's correct. 2024. Yeah,
So a manned mission to land.
And what they're hoping to do is to start a permanent moon base.
Right. And what is that? That's to get ready for a Mars mission or something like that? Or
Partially, yeah. It's one of those things of trying to get something out there because the Mars mission is really far out.
Probably not in our lifetimes, I'm guessing.
It could be, but there's still a lot we have to learn on what to do and the length of time that those missions have to go. Moon mission, it's only a 3-4 day travel time to the moon from Earth. It's easier to get to, obviously.
To go to Mars, what's that? It's like a year?
Depending on when things are in the orbit, 6 months or 18 months.
Whew. Wow.
That
is a long...
Can you imagine that? I'd be claustrophobic.
That is a long
that's
time
a one-way
to be
trip.
That's
a one-way trip. And then you have to take off. And Mars it's smaller than Earth, has less gravity than Earth, but it's still more gravity than the moon. So you have to have a bigger rocket to be able to take off from Mars to have the astronauts come back.
So you're really thinking in the realm of maybe a 2 to 3 year
Yes.
mission.
Plus time to be on Mars to do whatever you're going to do on Mars.
Wow.
Because it's not just,
getting
18
there
months getting there.
Right. If you're going to get
and
there, you
getting-
better do something significant.
Yeah, so we're talking like about a 3 to 5 year mission that people are going to be away from Earth.
Are we still receiving data from the? Lost my train of thought.
We have
The-
a bunch
the-
of probes around
yeah.
Mars. Spirit
the
and
ro-
Opportunity
rover?
have passed away.
the rover, right?
There's a couple of rovers. Spirit
Yeah.
and Opportunity passed away, and the other one is I can't remember its name right now. It's the nuclear powered one. That one is still sending back data.
What's the
So-
time span on that one?
The power supply is going to last for years. It's just how long the electronics. It has lasted longer than the listed mission time, but they kind of do build up. If it gets down onto the planet and it doesn't run into something, it will last longer than what they expect.
So these new missions, though, they're going to be a combination of government and private sector.
No, the one that they're talking about for 2024, that's a NASA mission. NASA contracts out. So like all the
Sure.
rockets that are built by
Right.
companies, Northern Thiokol, Lockheed Martin. These are the contractors. What's happened with like SpaceX and Blue Moon and these other companies, they started out, we're building rockets, and once we've built a rocket, hey, NASA, do you want to hire us to do the rocket stuff for you? As opposed to NASA going out and saying, Lockheed Martin, I want you to build us a rocket, and here are the specs for the rocket.
Gotcha.
As opposed to somebody else doing, it's still a lot of money. Not just a rocket, but, flight time, infrastructure, because you got to build infrastructure. I mean, landing some guys to go and collect rocks, it cost billions in the 60s, and it's going to cost a lot more to stay there.
All right. Anything else to add, gentlemen?
No.
All right. If you have any questions about these two stories or anything else science related, you can always call Alex right now. Or you can go to his Facebook page, Alex's Science Corner, or his YouTube channel if you want to see some past shows. And this one will probably be up in a few days. Number here is 203
837.
99.
24.